Wait. Well, every case has two sides. You try cases for a variety of reasons. Sometimes you're trying a case because the argument is about guilt or innocence. The state 100% believes your client's guilty, and you 100% know your client's innocent. And so sometimes that's the reason you try a case, especially when it comes to felonies, which are your more serious cases. Sometimes, which is, and most often the case, you're trying a case because you can't agree on what the punishment should be. The state may think a case is worth many, many years, and you may think if it's worth years at all, it's only worth single digits. Last year, I tried a case where my client suffered from mental illness. He had paranoid schizophrenia, and the state had charged my client with 6 or 7 cases of attempted capital murder of a police officer. And for someone to be guilty of attempted capital murder of a police officer, one, they have to know it's a police officer, but number 2, they have to have the specific intent to take that officer's life. And so the state had charged my client with several cases of this. We had made sure he was competent, that he understood to the extent that he could understand what was going on, and he did. It wasn't that he wasn't competent. It's just that he had a few extra obstacles that most of us don't have. I prepared the case for trial because the offer forever had been 25 years in prison. My client had never had anything serious on his criminal record before. He just suffered from a mental illness. So we tried the case, and in trying it, one of the things that I didn't understand why the state didn't see this the same way was the ballistics evidence. And ballistics can make or break a case. And in this case, it made the case for the defense. My client was in his home and was involved in a 7-hour police standoff. There were 50, 60, 70 police officers outside of his home. His mother called the police to begin with because he had an AK-47. He fired up the garage door across the street. It had hit a house. Fortunately, no one was hurt. And then he went and holed up in his bedroom. And he was really having a mental breakdown because he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. Not to say that everyone does, but my client believed in UFOs, believed UFOs landed on the roof, believed UFOs were outside of the window. While he was having this breakdown in his bedroom, the police department had flown drones all around his house, and they had flown drones outside of the window where he was. They'd also thrown a brick through the window at one point, which shattered the glass, and then they inserted a camera that was mounted on a pole that was held by the police officers. So the ballistics in the case showed that my client fired directly out of his bedroom window, just directly out the window. The officers were 90 degrees or a right angle away this direction, and every shot out the window went this way. And I didn't understand how the state believed that by firing a right angle from where the police officers were standing, how that constituted an attempt to take a police officer's life. Yes. The main witness, when he took the stand in the middle of his cross-examination, when I was asking him about this, and I said, "The shot didn't come your direction, did it?" "No. It came towards the camera." And I said, "The camera was directly outside the window, wasn't it?" He said, "Yes." And I said, "The camera's not a person." And he goes, "Well, we were holding the camera." And I said, "The camera's not a person." And he said, "Yes." And I said, "In fact, you weren't even holding the pole that held the camera." So we demonstrated that the ballistics went this way, and there was never a chance that the officers were even going to be struck by a bullet, let alone hurt, let alone seriously injured. And the jury agreed. And the jury didn't believe he was guilty of attempted capital murder. The jury didn't even believe, or they weren't even convinced that he understood there were any police officers outside of his bedroom window. And they found him guilty of aggravated assault and gave him a short prison sentence as a result. That's a good illustration of two sides to every story, different views of the physical evidence, and also differing views of how a jury would respond to something like mental illness. One of the things that I know our larger police departments have is they have mental health teams. They have these teams that can come and respond to a situation just like this, and they have these teams on call 24 hours a day. And that was one of the things that we talked to each of the witnesses about, was how many people from this team showed up. And, they very sheepishly said none. And I said, how many phone calls were made to this mental health team, this team that the police department had specifically set up for just this kind of crisis? And they sheepishly finally admitted, no one showed up. because they never made a single call. And the jury took that to heart, and they took that into consideration and returned what I believe was the appropriate sentence.